This is a diversity issue.
The reason that we focus so much on the multi-ethnic race aspect of it is the United States was built on the backs of slaves. That reality affected how our churches were also formed. So we have a history of division in the United States. MLK 50 was great because we didn't mince words. We spoke it was just in a time of just...
Hello, it's Rustle More here with the ERLC. Hey listen, we're getting kind of TO'd with all these questions about why we haven't said boo about Grace Community Church's ongoing persecution. After all, what they've been doing is something that a year ago we'd never have believed would be criminalized so soon in America. Gathering together on the Lord's Day. Seems pretty basic, right? But it's more complicated than you think. Now, our first instinct, being collectivist statist first and foremost, is that any limitations from the Bible on man-made authorities are really more theoretical than practical. Our litmus tests for whether a believer is required to obey a law are very, very simple. First, did a bureaucrat tell us it's okay? If so, we're 99% sure that Romans 13 means that we have to comply with anything and everything a progressive tells us to do. Now, if Orange Man says it, that's another story. You have a duty to disobey, particularly if it's an order that specifically upholds Romans 13's mandate for the government to bear the sword and punish evildoers. Bearing the sword is so old-fashioned, backwards, and mean. Wouldn't a pillow be nicer than a sword? Catch more flies with honey than with vinegar, after all. Now, we're not perfect, so just in case, here's one more test as a safeguard. Did the bureaucrat tell you it's for your own good? If so, that settles it. It probably is for your own good, or for the good of the community. We can always come up with some sort of way to nuance our compliance fetish into noble maturity. Now, we were able to make these kinds of arguments with a straight face in the spring, even in the summer, but as we move into the fall, we realize that more and more of you are getting back to real life and can't afford to play along anymore with our little charade. So in a desperate attempt to capitalize on the organic grassroots support for Grace Community Church, while trying to distract from their unseemly, brazen overconfidence, we at the ERLC are finally taking a stand in favor of in-person church gatherings. No, not for Grace Community Church. California? Never heard of it. Mark Dever's church is the one we want to spotlight. You know Mark Dever, he's the guy whose website this summer ran an article actually trying to discourage members of Grace Community Church from attending. Now, I realize this leaves some of you scratching your heads. I mean, we haven't admitted that we've been cowards when it comes to MacArthur's church, but now we're going full Martin Luther mode for Dever's church. Why? Well, reason number one, MacArthur's bad. John MacArthur is out of step with our day and age, and this makes us cringe. He doesn't play along with the social justice, systemic racism narrative of the world, which gets us pretty hot under the collar. And he rejects pragmatism and doesn't do anything to make the gospel more palatable or chic. He's not seeker-sensitive at all. He's never adapting scripture to try and conform to lefty social virtues like railing against income inequality or promoting open borders, which is my bread and butter. He just makes us mad, but it gives us like no room to call him out on anything because he's always just focusing on teaching the Bible faithfully. This is our big chance to get rid of someone who's been rocking the boat for us for long enough. If we play our cards right, we might not have to lift a finger to get rid of him. The California state authorities might just do our dirty work for us. Now, some might think this isn't very biblical, but I'd have to disagree. I think it's actually very biblical. You know, if you read any of the four Gospels, you're going to find accounts of religious elites enabling pagans to rub out someone they don't like when they feel threatened. So it's actually a very gospel-rooted idea. Why is Mark Dever okay, you ask? Well, he has nuance, and he doesn't embarrass us all the time. He packages things in a way that's a little bit more appealing and friendly to the world around us. And he's made comments that at least imply that white Christians are generally less sophisticated than black Christians, especially when it comes to voting. He might not be a committed social justice warrior, but he'll at least yield space to us from time to time, and we can work with that. Reason number 2 is that the Capitol Hill Baptist Church approach really scratches our itch to comply, to conform, to fit in, and to be hopefully loved by the world. One of the virtues that we place the highest stock in here at ERLC is for Christians to refrain from ever calling out those in our world who would cynically rewire every detail about humanity for their own gain. You know, like try and impose a new normal that looks suspiciously like the Green New Deal. Fortunately, there's not a peep on this subject from Capitol Hill Baptist Church. So Mark Dever at least has the decency to impose the invasive COVID protocols on his congregation. So that makes them socially acceptable for us to defend. Mark Dever and his leadership have decreed that all congregants must go through the motions of the world's illogical rain dance to the public health gods of COVID. The thoroughly ineffective COVID mask is probably the reigning superstitious charm of our world today. Even the American Journal of Medicine stated this summer that the mask is nothing more than a talisman, and CHBC mandates that all of their congregants must wear their little talisman to Baal or be expelled from the gathering. Now, this is by no means the end of our little discussion salon, but I need to take a break and make myself a little spot of tea. So be sure to tune in later for the rest of our conversation on Tea Time with Rustle More.
La 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 la